Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
The shade. That was President Biden earlier this week calling Donald Trump's bluff by agreeing to debate him not once but twice. The Biden and Trump campaigns opted to bypass the Commission on Presidential Debates and privately agreed to a debate hosted by CNN on June 27th and another hosted by ABC News on September 10th. Trump then demanded that Biden attend 2 additional debates, but the president refused, saying, quote, "The debate about debates is over." At an event in Minnesota last night, Trump also demanded that President Biden agree to a drug test before the first debate. This is a follow-up on Trump's completely baseless claims that Biden used drugs for his State of the Union address. You go first, Donald. Joining me now, Olivia Troy, former top aide to former Vice President Mike Pence, and that's Olivia, and Amisha Cross, Democratic strategist and former Obama campaign advisor. Thank you both very much for coming to the Saturday show. So, Olivia, do you think Trump will actually show up to either debate?
I think it's a 50-50 shot. I think he will keep us guessing. I think that he will tease it out until the very end. And I think until he actually walks through that door, I mean, there's no telling what he'll do.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, the first debate will come before either party's nominating conventions. And then the second debate will come before early voting begins. Isn't this actually better for voters?
Well, I think so, because I say give him all the runway. Give Donald Trump plenty of runway so that he can show his true colors again and remind the American people of what a Trump presidency would look like, because that's what you're going to get. I think, you know, and I think it's an opportunity for Joe Biden to shine, to talk about his policies, to talk about what he has planned for the next 4 years, and let Trump, you know, go off about whatever he's going to say about squirrels and rigged and stolen elections and witch hunts and whatever else he's going to throw at us.
Hannibal Lecter?
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter. Right. I see you nodding real quickly. What do you want to add to this before I ask you about something else?
Well, I just think that I agree with you. I think that this is actually a very good thing for voters because, quite frankly, it gives them ahead of early voting a chance to really understand, you know, what the policy platforms are, but also gives Trump a chance to hang himself. But in addition to that, it puts what matters to the American people on Front Street before they've actually cast their votes. I think that this is a great calendar, and I don't know why the Presidential Debate Commission didn't think of this type of thing before.
All right. So, Amisha, tonight at Trump's addressing the NRA convention, and he attacked Democrats, President Biden, and President Biden's speaking skills. Watch this.
They're going to do a Zoom convention, I hear, because, you know, they're blaming the pickets, the riots, whatever they might want to blame. The real problem is he doesn't want to get up and speak. He doesn't want to walk. He can't walk from that stair to this podium. He can't put 2 sentences together.
All right, Amisha, that was so much projection going on in what Trump was saying. But when preparing for a debate, shouldn't he be, I mean, don't you usually downplay your own skills before a debate and not the skills of your opponent? I mean, Biden will walk on that stage, you know, standing tall and walking with purpose to the podium. He will have totally blown up what Donald Trump has just said there.
No, absolutely. And what Donald Trump is doing is also, in addition to projecting, he is still, quite frankly, butthurt over the State of the Union address. He had him and the Republicans ran such a negative ads, campaign addresses, everything related to that being a failure. And then President Biden came out and, you know, he was a shining star, followed up by a very awful and, quite frankly, creepy Republican response. But here, Donald Trump needs to be mitigating his own disaster. That's what he needs to worry about. Joe Biden can walk, talk, and do policy at the same time. He's in Georgia right now proving that. He's, you know, circled the country. He's been at the battleground states. He was just in Wisconsin last week. He's getting people fired up. There is nothing that points to this being a moment where he would fall flat. If anything, Donald Trump, who's not a conventional debater, who is not someone who follows any rules anyway, who now will be in a space where moderators will cut off your mic, where there is no audience to get him going. He's the one who's going to have a much tougher time.
Yeah. I was going to ask about RFK Jr., but we don't have time for that. This is for both of you. I want to turn to the Trump criminal trial in New York. And I'm just wondering, do you think the reporting on Trump's court case is having any effect on the electorate? Olivia, you go first.
You know, I would like to see a conviction because I think the voters are kind of watching that and trying to make decisions on that. But honestly, when he goes out and does his press conferences, which I call his political rallies, because that's the only place he can really kind of campaign right now because he's too busy with all the, criminality that he's done throughout his life and being held accountable for it. But I think what I am watching is whether his surrogates and all these people in the Republican Party that have decided that they're so politically craven that they're going to go there and sell their souls to this man, even though they're sitting there embarrassing themselves because they are basically protecting someone who is going under trial for crimes that he has himself done, right? So I'm curious to see how that resonates with Republican voters. Do they like that? Do they like that for the Republican Party? Because I can tell you that as someone who comes from a Republican background, I sure as heck don't, because I think it's just another day of damage to the brand.
And Amisha, what do you think?
I think that there are fewer enlightened Republicans like Olivia Troy than is actually out there voting. But for the general public, for those swing voters, for those undecided voters, I'm not sure that this is necessarily moving them. Now, if we hear in the next couple weeks, possibly shorter, if there is an actual conviction, I think that that could have some leveraging points. But thus far, the majority of Americans have not been following this day by day, and it not being televised, i.e. in the courtroom, I think lost a little bit of its flavor for people. They're more interested in housing costs going up, things, those kitchen table issues, women's reproductive rights. They aren't really following the ins and outs of the courtroom.
And that, because I asked that question because I wondered, will this have the same impact as the January 6th Select Committee hearings did over the course of 10 incredible hearings? And you pointed out a key difference between that and what we're seeing now. The Select Committee was on television. This is not. Olivia Troy, Amisha Cross, thank you both very much for coming to the Saturday Show. We're going to have to do this again.